we know you are the current Council Transport and Development Committee Chairman. So if you're leading the city in the future, what will you actually do to improve our transport network? Do you have any specific plans regarding that? Or?
Well, look, there's an enormous number of things which are going on. So first of all, we've got the Let's Get Wellington Moving project. So while I can't say that the solution is it's 2 tunnels, it's an underground at the basin, and no, I can't say that because we're not in that position. What we're doing at the moment is we've engaging with NZTA, Greater Wellington, ourselves, engaging with the community. We've had in excess of 10,000 people engaged in that process. We've developed a set of principles, so these are the things we're trying to achieve. We're asking the community to tell us what they think should happen. We will use those ideas, and undoubtedly we'll probably have to put in some of our own thoughts as well to develop some packages, and then we'll go to the community in the first part of next year to say, well, these are a set of alternative packages that we might use to deliver the outcomes we're trying to deliver. What do you think? Out of that, we say, right, the package that you want to go for is this collection. So it'll be a collection of things which will undoubtedly include roading improvements, will undoubtedly include public transport improvements, walking improvements, cycling improvements, and improvements to the urban amenity of the area. So what does it exactly look like? Can't tell you, because if I could say, here it is, this is the solution, why would we be asking the community? And that's where the last proposal went, fell over. It's because NZTA said, you can have this flyover or this flyover, and people said, well, actually, we don't like those, we'll fight you, and they won.
Yeah.
And so we can't go bullet a gate at this, because if we go bullet a gate, we're likely to end up with a very sore head.
Yeah. Well, the other thing a lot of complain about is the.
I was going to say the one other thing to say is we will get a solution.
We will get a solution.
And within a reasonable time frame.
Yeah. But a lot of people, a lot of people actually complain about the new developed smart highway, and a lot of people think it's actually a failed project, unsuccessful or not that successful. So, what is your opinion regarding that? Do you think it's a very successful project?
I haven't had a lot of negative feedback about it. And that usually, the absence of negative feedback usually is quite good. I've only used it a couple of times since the smart highway's been fully operational. I mean, I've used it heaps of times while it was being developed, and it seemed to be working okay. So hopefully, it's not job done though. I mean, there's 4 lanes going north. There's not yet 4 lanes going south.
It takes some time for people to accept that.
So I think we also, one of the other things that we do need is we're working with Port, Rail, NZTA. On what's called Port Access Plan, and that's about, at the moment, if you want to get vehicles into the port, you've got to take them along the secondary road, along Hutt Road, to get them into the port. Well, actually, it might be much better if we get them off the motorway direct, and if we could get that extra lane on the motorway, maybe that's the time we get a cycleway over the port. So there's a whole bunch of things we can work on there. Slightly longer time frame than Let's Get Wellington Moving, but I hope we'll have some ideas on that within the next couple of years.
Yeah, cool. Do you drive every day using the smart?
No, I'm in Karori, so no, I don't.
Okay,
we use an ordinary road.
Okay. And the cycling track is one of the things you've been pushing.
Yes.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
Well, I think the thing is that if our population grows, let's say we've got 150,000 people in 1991, we've got just over 200,000 now. The numbers that have been talked about, well, we've been working on 50,000 in the next 30 years, but possibly as much as 100,000. And if you start putting in a 50% population increase, you can't keep doing what you've been doing in the past and hope that it's going to work in the future. So we know that we're going to need to change. Well, urban forms is critical. So more people live downtown, more people live close to public transport is good. The more people use public transport, walk, cycle is good. We're starting car share schemes at the moment. We're also working with some people in a number of companies on electric vehicles and getting in charging stations there. So there's a whole bunch of things that we're doing to try and make the system work better, lower congestion, more transport choice, and lower emissions.
Yeah. Well, talking about make the city more convenient. We know that ages ago we had a capital light train plan. But apparently it was aborted due to insufficient funding. And if you live in the city in the future, and if you're the mayor, would you put the project or the plan back on track?
Well, I think the Let's Get Wellington Moving gives the opportunity to test that. And see how it stacks up. I think the answer to for that is it's probably not now.
Probably not now.
But what I've always said is we've got to make sure that we keep the corridor available for it. You know, work out where if it happens in the future, which as the city grows is quite possible, and possibly quite desirable. Where's it going to go? Make sure that we don't undermine that corridor with any development that occurs, and start thinking about it, start planning towards it. It may well be that it's one. I mean, at the moment the regional council's going down the process of tendering for bus contracts. Those bus contracts will run for between 9 and 12 years, I think it is, depending on which routes, etc. So you're going to have to get at least beyond that before you're talking about some new technology. But the lead time for these things is quite substantial. So if you're going to start planning for that, you start planning for it, in 5 years' time. Something like that.
The other thing is a lot of people don't understand the difference between the trends we're currently having and the light train.
Heavy rail, light rail.
But I went to Gold Coast last year. Their light train was absolutely fancy, and I would personally be interested if we do have have the light train being available for us.
Look, it's expensive. It's not it's not flexible. But the reason you do it if you do it is because your bus system's exceeded its capacity. Because you can put more people down a route on a light rail system than you can on a bus system. So that will be the trigger.
Okay. So well, as so we are the new immigrants to New Zealand. Those of us.
How long have you been?
I've been here for 5 years.
I've been here more than 3 years.
Cool. Yeah, well, welcome.
So my English is not still that good, but
It's better than my Chinese.
Oh well. Not until
imagine that's about as far as I can get. I've got to work on that one.
So we're very excited to see the extension of Wellington Airport Runway extension. I mean extension of Wellington Airport Runway, to have like a more direct flights, connecting Wellington and the rest of the world for sure. But there are some negative comments about this expensive project. So what is your opinion?
Well, I mean, look, there's no such thing for a project like of that scale. You are never going to get everybody going yes, and like you're never going to get everybody going no. You know what the community debate about it. My view is that we need to be entering this positively, particularly the business sector and the education sector. are seeing this as a positive, but we've got to be very conscious that we've got to make a hard-hitting decision at the end of the day. So it's got to stack up. So it's got to get over a number of hurdles. So it has to be obviously resource consent, which is the process it's going through at the moment, and then it's got to we've got to obviously get funding in place. We've got to get at least a reasonable feel for the airlines which are going to be here to see what they can is justified. And we may not have them signed up on the dotted line, but we at least need to know that they are looking very likely. And who's flying to where, how frequently, and from that you then work out what is the economic benefit. Because we could spend, let's say it's $250 million of public money and $50 million of airport money. We could spend $250 million doing that and get a certain level of economic benefit. And the obvious thing you have to do is, if you spent $250 million in a different way, what would your economic benefit be? Would it be higher or lower? So it's got to get over all those hurdles. And we've also got the easy one probably is we've got to have an investment vehicle, which means that the funders own the airport extension. We're not giving it to the airport company. That would be the wrong thing to do. And the other question we've got to ask as part of that economic benefit is, could we achieve those connections in a different way? So, for example, the deal with Singapore Air, that's costing the council $800,000 or $900,000 a year to
have the direct fund
for 10 years. Have Wellington, Canberra, Singapore. That's really valuable. Question is, if you want to get a number of different connections, do they cost you? How much do they cost you? And is that cheaper than building an airport extension? So we need to understand all of those. At the moment, we don't have that. And so anybody who says the answer is yes, fantastic, just do it, is doing that, is making a decision without all that evidence. That's not good business sense.
So in other words, it's about money and priority, obviously.
Well, it's about answering those questions, getting across those hurdles. If you can do that, then it's a tick. If it can't do that, it should be a cross. And so, as I said, we enter this process positively, saying we hope it gets across those hurdles. But if it doesn't, we've got to be, say, well, hey, it doesn't stack up, doesn't make economic sense, financial sense, and the answer should be no. But we've got to give it the best chance we can.
I've got another question regarding Wellington City being international. So Wellington City as a capital is attempting to double the international students number in the in the next, I don't know, 5 years or yeah. And the current mayor has talked about this in the planning in the World Tech graduation ceremony earlier this year, and we were there as well. But the truth is that nearly half of the Chinese students are struggling finding a job at the moment because you know, it's quite hard even for the local. They're pretty sometimes it can be struggling to find a job. So do you think of this problem, and how would you keep the balance between the boosting international students number and the limited job opportunity in Wellington?
So when you say the limited, are you talking about jobs while you're studying, so the holiday, the job over the holidays, or are you talking about a job when you're finished?
Long-term career, yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously we need to, well, there's a number of things we need to do. Obviously we want more jobs to happen. The city's not going to grow. The city won't grow if we don't have jobs. And, you know, because people aren't going to come here if they haven't got a job. Right, great lifestyle, fantastic, but I haven't got a job, well, I've got to go somewhere else. So that's not going to work. So obviously we've got to keep on doing what we're doing in terms of promoting economic activity. Our main roles in that are providing infrastructure, you know, all the things that we need to operate as a city. Transport's part of that, for example. To provide the lifestyle opportunities. We've just been sitting listening to lots and lots of people, particularly in the mountain biking area, who are saying, look, I choose to live in Wellington because of the lifestyle opportunities it gives me. Nowhere else has got as good a lifestyle opportunities there for somebody who rides. Brilliant. Okay. So lifestyle's really, really important. We've got to be waving the Wellington flag, and that includes the international flags. That includes, you know, the mayor has just been over to Singapore, to China, to Korea, to say, well, here we are. What are the agreements we can have? One of them was actually about exactly that thing of boosting student numbers and the relationship we have there, and for example, offering scholarships to a couple of students from Xiamen universities. So you know, so that's all part of that as well.
Yeah, that's just,
and then there's there's us directly investing in things which actually directly boost economic activity. So, for example, we've got the Film Museum and Convention Centre, which is happening fairly shortly. If the airport extension goes ahead, that's another thing. So those things are also about boosting economic activity as well. So so that's a long answer to we've got to keep the economy moving as much as we can. We've got to try and keep on marketing through the regional economic development agencies to say to people, you know, come here. I mean, it's a relatively cheap place to do business from. It's a relatively cheap place to live compared to many other places. You know, so we've actually got quite a bit that we can say to people. Obviously, again, you go back to we've got to provide that infrastructure and housing and everything else like that. So it's a big answer to that specific question. The other thing I think is directly there's been quite a bit of conversation going on about connecting the education sector to employers and trying to make sure that there is more connection, so that in fact people are being trained for jobs which actually exist as opposed to jobs which don't exist. And that's obviously sensible as well. The other thing which I was going to say, which is why I asked the question about summer time, is supporting internships. So you get the opportunity during, you're doing whatever the course might be, and during your summer holidays you get some opportunity to go in and work in a related business, and then hopefully at the end of the time you become qualified and they go, yeah, really liked you, do you want a job?
In terms of the education exchange agreement, which you just mentioned with Xiamen University, well, if you're the mayor, would you like to create more opportunity or cooperative relationship between any other Chinese city or Xiamen, or in other, not limited to education, but other fields as well in the future?
Is there other
fields, in other fields?
Well, I mean, obviously we're doing that. That's why we've had a number of delegations gone to China and to Japan and to Korea, and so we are very much looking outwards. I think that's important. One of the things actually I would like to do, which is sort of slightly tangential to that, is also build some relationships in places which are not quite as well off. And I've sort of suggested maybe what we do is we start looking at some places which are, if you like, developing countries. So my suggestion was Nepal and maybe one of the Pacific Island countries, where we're actually supporting them and our communities are building a relationship with them. Nepal might be a really good example because you have, earthquake prone. You've got obviously the relationship through Sri Hillary But we've got a lot of earthquake engineering expertise in
right.
Wellington. We say, well, look, we can assist you to become a more resilient community. So obviously it's work for us, but it's a good outcome for Nepal, just by way of example.
Yeah.
So yes, we are. We want to be an international city. We are. We're a long way away from many parts of the world.
And we're coming.
But we are. We are part of the global community.
Yeah. A lot of readers of Chinese press are very interested in the Chinese Garden project.
Yes.
So, we're very interested to know more about this, coming or potential projects. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because there's been a bit of. You might have noticed there's been a bit of people going, oh, we're not really sure whether this is a good idea or not.
Yeah.
And, well, because we've just applied for the resource consent for it, and that's going through its process at the moment. And it's like, well, if you had a problem with it, why didn't you engage with this when we actually consulted about whether we were doing one? So we consulted not once but twice through our annual budgetary process or our long-term plan, and the feedback was generally positive. I mean, obviously the Chinese community here was very, very positive, and we entered into a memorandum of understanding with Xiamen, witnessed by the Chinese president and our own government as well. And for me, this is really simple. We have a commitment. And a commitment means something. You don't go, oh no, we'll just, we don't feel like doing that anymore. You don't do that because you make a commitment, you see it through, and I think that's really, really important. So that my answer to people in that situation is, we've made a commitment. We've got two conditions on it. One, that it gets resource consent, which the process is going through at the moment. We agreed to a time frame for doing that. And the second is the funding for the garden itself is raised by the Chinese community, locally and internationally. And if that happens, then we stump up with the money to do the rest of Frankie's part. And away we go.
Yeah. Well, last question, or not really a question, but do you have any message you want to deliver to the Chinese community here in Wellington?
Do I look that way or do I look this way?
Either way. It's all right.
Oh, okay. But Wellington is an absolutely fantastic city, and it's wonderful to have such a diverse community living here. And my goal as mayor will be simply to make this great city even better for everybody from all over the world who chooses to live and call Wellington home.
Well, thanks again for